opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy, everybody. Coming to you cordless from glamorous Minneapolis. It's Tuesday night, April 28th, 2026. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 343, if you're marking your scorecards at home. And who's our guest tonight? You know him and you love him. He's a military historian, former U.S. Army colonel. He's basically the Jack Keane of Jim Peters at Night. Because we get all of Fox News's sloppy seconds. Here's Jonathan Lockwood.
I feel so honored. You should say that Jack Keane is the forerunner of Dr. Jonathan Lockwood.
Yeah, I should. That's right. That's the actual comparison. You're
right. He'll love that.
Yeah, but you're a general. You're a colonel. So how can I do that?
That's right. That's okay. I just ask him, "Where's your PhD?"
Yeah, all right, that's good.
I came into the army. I came into the army back in 1980 with a PhD as a 24-year-old first lieutenant. Okay, what's your excuse, guys?
Yeah, that's impressive. I didn't do anything.
well, you know what's funny about that is that our current Secretary of Defense, Mr. Pete Hegseth. Now he was. I came into the army back in September 1980. That's the same year that he was born.
Yeah, I know.
I had almost a 25-year head start on the guy. There was no way I could.
Not to put you on the spot, Jonathan, but how do you think he's doing?
Well, I can understand. Yeah, here's the thing. I understand the logic that he was operating under when he accepted President Trump's apparent invitation for him to become the next Secretary of Defense. He was obviously thinking, based upon his experience as a Fox News contributor and being a credible media spokesperson on military affairs and so forth, he was probably thinking, "Wow, here's my big chance. Yeah, with President Trump backing me up and sort of flying top cover for me, if all I have to do is successfully complete a 4-year tour as Secretary of Defense, and then when I return to civilian life, I can name my own price." And mind you, it was a heck of a big investment, considering that he was making, according to public record, he was making $5 million a year.
Yeah, that would be my guess. He's going to want to know about the job.
$5 million. And right. He must have been thinking double digits or high double digits when he was in the millions for successfully completing a tour. Then he could go anywhere and do anything he wanted. The miscalculation that I think he might have made is that he was apparently underestimating the difficulty of the job, that he was undertaking. Plus, he overestimated perhaps his own ability to quickly adapt to the job, because there have been reports, personality conflicts and things like that, but those are inevitable. And then finally, most crucially of all, he underestimated the level of hostility that he would encounter on the part of not only people within his own organization, but from the press and from the Democratic Party and others.
Does he care? I mean, he's been on TV. If you're on TV, people constantly criticize.
Yeah, exactly. One would think that he is. I'm assuming that he has developed a tough enough skin by this time to simply shrug it off and concentrate on the job at hand, which apparently he is doing. So that's again, you give him credit for hanging in there and not just folding his cards.
Well, let me run something else by you. I'm the guy sitting here in Minneapolis, never had any military experience. I don't know shit, but all I know is that in the last couple of years, virtually at least as far as I can tell, virtually every single thing the military's done every operation to come off virtually flawlessly. I mean, am I right about that?
I think I think yes, I can say that with almost metaphysical certitude that you're correct in that assumption. You know, there were military operations in years past which did not go so flawlessly, and we can go back as far as the Carter administration for that.
Well, right.
And there were other.
Hold it. You and I have talked about that before. When the Carter administration sent that flotilla to get those hostages out of Iran in 77 or 78, and it failed. Was that just bad luck, or did they screw that up?
There were systemic flaws that needed to be corrected, and systemic in ability to project power and to do it reliably. And you probably noticed that they have since corrected those deficiencies.
Yeah.
The Army has a lessons learned center where they learn from they systematically try to learn from their mistakes and avoid them in the future. And that's what apparently they have done over the intervening decades. So that the things which one of the strongest points, one of the things that the American military has always been good at ever since World War II has been logistics, the science of supply. And linked to that is an integral part of being able to project power. You cannot project power unless you have a robust enough and sophisticated enough logistics system to supply it. And you will notice that is what the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, they have got their logistics procedures down perfect.
Well, I hate to drag politics into this, but there's kind of sort of over time the sense that liberal administrations don't do that as well as conservative administrations do. Am I right about that, or is that?
Liberal administration, that may be a bit of an oversimplification, in that liberal administrations, it's almost an oversimplification there, that democratic administrations were more likely during the Cold War to get us involved in military conflicts, whereas Republican administrations like the Eisenhower administration got us out of military conflicts, and the Nixon administration got us out of military conflicts, withdrew from Vietnam. But as a general rule, the Republican administrations seem to be more willing to take the counsel of their military advisors, of their military departments. They don't try to over supervise the military. So in this case, President Trump, he has had complete confidence that his military advisors know what the heck they're doing. If they decide, Mr. President, we can support this operation that you are recommending. And the military backed him up and proved him right. And we have a degree of superiority and supremacy that it may not last forever. It depends upon how we, in future terms and future remaining years of the 21st century, how well we construct our national and military, our political and military strategy, along with the resources that we have, to use them intelligently. What I recommend in my book, The Russian View of U.S. Strategy, is that we should be the world's geopolitical balancer, not its policeman, not its regime change maker or whatever, but preserve a balance so that we can.
What do you mean by that? So, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as a geopolitical balancer, the analogy that I use is that of Great Britain to the continent of Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries. The British were basically using their naval supremacy, as well as their extensive colonies that they had, to be able to provide a balance to the continent of Europe, so that to guarantee that no one power or combination of powers would be able to dominate the continent of Europe. And that worked, as far as it went, until it finally reached its breaking point in 1914. But now you have to broaden the analogy to a global scale. The United States should be the geopolitical balancer to the world island of Europe and Asia, to prevent any power or combination of powers that are hostile to U.S. interests from dominating the world island. And that inherently, the key to that is for the U.S. to be able to, now in the 21st century, we must continue to dominate the world's oceans, because that's our big one. We continue to promote free trade, protect. The only reason that global trade can exist freely now is because the United States guarantees the freedom of the world's oceans.
Mm-hmm.
You have that, and if the U.S. can dominate space, sea and space, we then have we can then prevent potential hostile powers from threatening the United States' interests and those of its allies, so that it preserve the balance rather than wage war.
Well, I have to ask you now. So, all right, we are probably, arguably, maybe China, the dominant superpower on Earth. But do you see any combinations of powers that could overwhelm us? I mean, China and somebody else, or
right now, for the moment, I would say no. The reason I say it is because Russia is practically becoming a basket case.
Yeah.
Because they're I mean, we were discussing that this morning. Russia, you remember Sasha and Ivan and I on the Ukraine show. We just had another podcast this morning.
Yeah, let's bring that up here. You know, your claim to fame is what's called the Ukraine show, and you have you and two other guys do it twice a week. And one of the big thing about your show is that one of the guys is actually in Ukraine. That's actually the cool thing about it. So your show's gotten a lot of attention. So I wanted to talk to you up there.
You can say, or you've sensed or got some anecdotal evidence that says our show's getting a lot of attention. That would be nice to know, but that's okay. We are unique. We are unique. Yeah. That is, and we are also unscripted, totally unscripted. I mean, Sasha kicks the ball off, and then the plays run from there. We just respond and go with it from there. But right now, we were saying this morning, our collective mood is very upbeat because Russia is, if I want to use a boxing analogy, Russia is in the position of a boxer who has run out of steam.
Yeah,
he can't even keep his hands up. He's vulnerable to attacks by his Ukrainian opponent. And Ukraine just
Jonathan, since the last time you've been on, I've had on 2 or 3 other people who maybe are tangentially involved in the military, and when this has come up, they all agree with you that they're basically a shadow puppet. You know, it's like that. There's nothing going on there. You've been saying that for a long time.
And that's the interesting thing. The Ukrainians have been so successful, and they're on the counteroffensive, and they're continuing to destroy Russian infrastructure, and really setting the stage, in my view, for an eventual counteroffensive to retake the Crimea.
Yeah,
that will be the knockout blow.
Right.
That will be that causes Russia to say, "Oh heck, let's just declare victory and go home."
Yeah, but hold on, I have to stop you there too. Is Putin just crazy enough so that he never declare victory and go home ever? I mean, the thing is, I could see this going on just because of his nuttiness, even after the Ukrainians obviously win. Do you think that would happen?
He could attempt it, but he could also try to rationalize it by simply saying, "We have accomplished the objectives of our special military operation," and thereby he would try to cover it,
right,
so that he could try to make it as politically as less unpleasant as he possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, he would have right now. The Ukrainians are doing exactly the right thing. They're continuing. They have developed independent sources of support from just the United States. You know, they now are able, thanks to the Europeans, to be able to finance the war on their own. They have developed their own defense industry. They are gaining increasing interest from other powers in their drone technology.
Yeah,
and they have the basis for a very rapid post-war economic recovery for Ukraine, just based upon the attractiveness of their military technology and technique.
And you've said this before. I've seen confirmation of this. They are pretty much now kind of the acknowledged leaders in military drone technology worldwide.
And if I were in there, I would do the same. I would be playing that up to the absolute maximum and basically teach the United States to master these,
Right.
and that would be very attractive and would provide a basis for those people who have had to flee Ukraine at the start of the war to come back and help rebuild Ukraine and lead it into an era of relative prosperity for the remainder of the 21st century. All of this is very promising for Ukraine. So that's and it would also indirectly lessen the burden on the United States. The United States would not have to feel obligated to project so much power or expend so much of its resources or put its own troops at risk in an effort to defend the interests of Ukraine and the NATO alliance. So this is indirectly beneficial to the U.S., which means we would not have to expend quite so much in the way of resources on our military, just focus on quality rather than quantity. And we would not have to follow the, full spectrum dominance. That's a phrase that the Department of Defense likes to throw around. They want to achieve full spectrum dominance. Well, unfortunately for me, that represents a bureaucratic term. All full spectrum dominance means more of everything is better.
Yeah,
that's
so
full spectrum dominance.
There's
no priority to it.
Let's talk about Iran here for a second, because I want to get your opinion on this. So I have been talking on the show for several weeks now about the fact that the president's getting, the administration's getting a lot of crap from the opposing side about the fact that they don't have a plan here, blah, 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 blah. Some of the stuff is just totally bullshit. But the thing that I want to run by you is the thing I see when a lot of people look at as stalling, and the fact that Iran seems to be stalling for time. I actually look at it as us stalling for time, because here's my theory, Jonathan, is that Trump and the DOD are playing 4D chess here. They planned this entire thing out so that the regime will collapse, and they knew exactly what to do at what time, and all this is all going to plan. So, for example, the Iranians started blockade. Well, we're going to blockade their blockade. Now, no one ever mentions this. This is actually just absolutely genius military stuff, if you ask me. The fact that we turned it around and now we're squeezing them, and it looks like within 2 weeks now that the regime there is going to collapse because of complete lack of money, which of course is the way we dismantled the Soviet Union too. Same thing, Now, do you think, is there anything to what I'm talking about? Do you think they planned this out this carefully?
I think in fact that they did plan it out very carefully, and you have to remember that we are not privy to internal discussions within the Pentagon. That's the reason why we have classification, top secret, secret.
Right.
You are not only protecting the source, you are protecting techniques, you are protecting information. You don't want to make your entire military an open book as to what capabilities we have.
Right.
Say, hey, let's publish our weaknesses while we're at it. No, that's not what they're about.
Well, Jonathan, here's a rhetorical question. Why is the press so goddamn stupid? Why don't they understand that? I mean, like I said, I'm a guy sitting in my underwear in Minneapolis broadcasting here, and I get this, and there's thousands of people writing all over the world who are getting paid enormous amounts of money, and they don't seem to understand this, and I don't understand why they don't understand. Do you?
Well, I can understand why they don't understand.
Tell me, please.
We're kind of like this. As an intelligence analyst, and having followed for example, the Soviet Union, the Soviets' perception of our strategy, is that remember that Napoleon once said that never interrupt your opponent when he is making a mistake. Well, I have a similar saying about intelligence analysis. The hardest thing for an intelligence analyst to predict is when the opponent is about to do something stupid.
Actually,
because you always assume.
That's brilliant. That can be applied to so many things in life.
Because when an intelligence analyst looks at the opponent or looks at a series of opponents, the implicit assumption is that the opponent is rational.
Yeah.
That they are looking at things, they're always doing things that are in their own best interests. Rarely, very rarely, does an intelligence analyst say, I think these guys are about to do something really, really dumb. They don't say that. There's got to be a reason behind what they're doing. So they look at this and they assume that there is a rationality behind it. In my book, The Lockwood Analytical Method for Prediction, it assumes that I once had a student ask me, because the principal philosophy in my book is the future is the sum total of interactions of free will. And a student asked me at one time in a class, what did I see as the role of God in all of this? And I stated that as a Christian, I believe that God is the ultimate free will actor. He has the power to intervene in history at any time or place that he chooses. But in order for us to understand, for us to attempt to comprehend the potential actions of an infinite God, an infinite intelligence, let alone predict those acts, what he's going to do, would absolutely impossible for us. Therefore, to the extent that we cannot do this, the future is inherently unknowable. However, when we use the Lockwood Analytical Method for prediction, the analyst has to assume that God will choose not to intervene in any given situation. And by the way, that makes the lamp work for both the Christian as well as the atheist, because the atheist assumes that God does not exist. Therefore, you just focus on the actors. The Christian assumes God exists, but he's going to choose not to act, so as to simplify the analysis. Barring divine intervention, this is what's going to happen. So that's the kind of rationality that I apply to.
So I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a physicist who came out a few weeks ago. I like to talk about science a lot in the show, about the fact, quantum theory or quantum mechanics is based on probability. There's nothing is set in stone ever. So, but his thing is that his contention is that there's always been randomness has always been part of this issue, but he says there's no randomness here. It says that we're too stupid to see the patterns. That's what he's, and I thought, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, God knows all the patterns. He has all knowledge. There is nothing that can take God by surprise. It's impossible.
That's right. That's kind of his point, right? In a secular way, he's talking about
in a secular way. He's proving the existence of God.
That's correct. Yes, I know. That's what I thought.
Whether he fully realizes it or not.
Yeah.
So that's the really amusing thing about all of this. So now, if we get back to Iran and what it's confronting right now, Iran is in a position. Iran is in a position which chess players would call Zugzwang. You know the German word Zugzwang?
No,
it means forced. It means forced move. In a game of chess, you can put an opponent in a position where he has only really one move,
right?
And that move leads him into an eventual checkmate,
right?
But he has no choice. It is a forced move. It's a forced move that leads to checkmate.
Right.
Iran, I would argue right now, is in Zugzwang. They are in a position. They only have one move. They're trying to stall, but that very act of stalling leads to checkmate. Because in 2 weeks, Iran is going to run out of resources. It's a contest of political wills.
Right.
President Trump has lots of political will.
Will an enormous amount of military power. I mean,
there you go.
Right.
He does not have to flog a dead horse, because the Iranians are practically out of energy already. So now he just has to wait for Iran to say, come to the table, gentlemen. We can do this the easy way. We can do this the hard way. He could, in theory, by destroying Iran's remaining power installations and by destroying, most crucially, its desalination plants.
Well, they have no water already. I mean, if you
they are just they're in Zugzwang.
Right.
It's a forced move. They have to, because they're running out of water. There's all sorts of things that are playing against their continued existence as a civilization, and so it quits.
All this stuff from the administration on negotiations, I think this has all been window dressing, partly for the American press and also for the Iranians themselves. I think they've they being the administration, has gone under the assumption the entire time that Iran will never negotiate a lack of nuclear weapons, and therefore they have no choice but to destroy the regime. And so they've basically been waiting these people out. And everyone says, well, the Iranians they're toying with us. No, I think we've been toying with them. That's what I think. And they don't seem.
I would tend to agree. It's a misinterpretation. It's a misinterpretation. The media is misinterpreting U.S. restraint as weakness.
Yeah, thank you.
In this case, they're misinterpreting restraint as weakness.
Right.
It's like, for example, when a person is characterized as meek, a person who's meek who doesn't seem to be willing to. Remember in the Superman comic how Clark Kent is described as meek, mild mannered.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
Meek and mild mannered does not mean weak.
Yeah.
It's just an example of power under control. So, if we use that analogy, the Trump and the United States are in the position of a powerful but meek and self-restrained nation, because it recognizes that all it has to do is wait, be vigilant, maintain it, and the Iranian regime will be forced by virtue of its own internal contradictions and weaknesses to either concede and come to terms to make a reasonable agreement.
What's going to happen here, the way I see this, is that the regime will become so weak it will basically fall apart, and then the Iranian people will literally take over the country. We're not even going to have to send in any troops. Although there's a caveat to that. We are probably almost certainly going to have to send in a few troops to find that damn uranium, to take that uranium out.
That could well be the case, and the Israelis will probably be working hand in hand with us on that, because they have the network, they have the Mossad, they have internal contacts and agents. I'm almost metaphysically certain of that would be able to assist in looking for and getting control of those remaining nuclear materials. So right now it's primarily a contest of wills. The United States is winning the contest, and all they have to do is exercise self-restraint, maintain vigilance, and just watch for the telltale signs of regime collapse, and that will be the end of that.
Yeah.
And then the United States can get back to, and something that I would get back to more pressing, say, economic problems or challenges, such as the accelerating national debt, which I would like to discuss in a future program.
Let's do that, actually.
I want to pull that out as an entirely separate discussion.
I'm going to ask you one question about that, though. I'm going to ask you. And Murray Sabrin is our guest tomorrow, a famed economist. So that's going to be the topic of discussion. Do you think it's inevitable that if we do not get this debt thing under control, it will end up collapsing the entire economy and nation? I mean, there's a lot of people who think this can go on forever. Do you think that? I don't either.
It can't go on forever, but fortunately, and my thesis is, and you can run this thesis by your guest tomorrow if you like.
Sure.
And you can say my thesis is that the longer there is a theoretical solution, but it is a difficult. It's kind of like the economic version of tough love. And the longer you wait to employ that solution, the harder you are going to have to slam on the brakes, because the debt is accelerating. And as it accelerates, that acceleration means any solution that we apply has to be applied with more force.
Right.
When it is finally employed, you have to slam on the brakes. And if you have to slam on the brakes really hard, there is the danger of a depression.
Right.
A global depression. And fortunately, what President Trump is doing is he is at least providing part of the solution, which means to deregulate, stimulate economic growth. You should not be afraid of having a genuine economic boom, which promotes a high percentage rate of growth, because that would make the tough solution that much more effective. By cutting spending in very unique and innovative ways. Well, and that is something that
everybody agrees there's no easy way out of this. I mean,
that's good.
Right.
but it has to be. And what will really be crucial in applying this solution is that it must be sold to the American public in a rational, sensible way. Says this is what we are going to do, and this is why we have to do it, and we have to stick to it. So that is the key. Who's going to be the key salesman of this solution? It'll be President Trump. He has to get the message, interpret it, says, okay, how do I sell this in the most logical and sensible manner? And if he can do that, well, he's earned his place on Mount Rushmore, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Let's go back to Ukraine. This made the news this week. Well, it didn't make the news, which is the reason I'm bringing it up. It basically got lost in the news cycle. And I want you to tell me and us how important this is. And that is Zelensky now is proposing that they extend martial law another year in Ukraine. And is that a good thing, bad thing? How does it apply to the war? What do you think of that?
Well, extending martial law, I interpret this as a necessary evil. It's necessary in order to preserve internal stability, because the Ukrainians, while not taking casualties nearly to the devastating extent that the Russians have, and they are inflicting significant damage on the Russians, it is still necessary to maintain martial law in order to preserve internal stability, to set the stage for post-war economic recovery, because you're going to have an influx of people coming back from outside of Ukraine, returning to Ukraine. So they will be involved in having to rebuild and restore, because there's been a lot of physical damage in Ukraine. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah.
And that will require reconstruction. It will require getting economic aid from the West to help rebuild Ukraine and restore its prosperity, actually enable to gain prosperity. But in order to have that, you have to have stability, law and order. You have to have a sense of internal order so that these economic recovery measures can succeed. And eventually, now they say that Ukraine has a corruption problem. My retort to that is, compared to whom?
Well, all right. So now let's compare, because historically, or at least until the war started, Ukraine was always lumped in with Somalia as the most corrupt country on earth. I mean, it was. So, is there any truth to that, or was that exaggerated? Or
well, compared to the way the Somalis have been behaving in the United States, specifically in a certain state that we need not bring that up.
You know what happened this morning? I don't know if you know this. It's like
go ahead.
20 plus organizations here in Minneapolis were raided by the DHS for fraud simultaneously, and they're almost all Somali oriented. Almost all of them, or maybe all of them. I don't know, but the vast majority of them were. Yeah, so it's not pretty here. It isn't.
Yeah, and with Ilhan Omar being under intense scrutiny herself.
Yeah,
I mean, she may be part of the great Somali exodus back to Somalia.
She might be. So, I mean, really, you're talking about a woman who's an elected congressperson who might be in the country illegally. I mean, you wrap your mind around that crazy shit.
No Hollywood writer would accept the script.
No, you're right. That's right. That would be implausible.
Nobody will believe that crap.
No, they wouldn't. You're absolutely correct. No one. No, it's like you made that up.
Surely you jest.
Well, you're a student. You've talked about this many times. You're a student of World War II. I've always said that if you wrote World War II as a novel, it would be rejected as implausible. I've always, it's like no one would ever think this could happen. It's crazy.
Well, for example, Pearl Harbor. Let's just use that as an example. Pearl Harbor, the historical reality was that, why did Japan attack Pearl Harbor? Well, we in the United States, we imposed an embargo on a steel and oil embargo on Japan, and Japan, we failed to recognize the influence of the Japanese Code of Bushido and their outlook on the world. And the U.S. Navy, to its credit, had conducted a series of war games in the 1930s, studying the potential of a war with Japan. And they explore the question, could the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor? Well, the Navy concluded, yes, the Japanese could attack Pearl Harbor successfully, but it would be strategic suicide for them to do it because we would just mobilize and kick their butts. And that while the U.S. Navy was correct, logically correct, they failed to reckon with the state of the mindset of the Japanese, that when presented with a situation of if we attack Pearl Harbor, we're going to get our butts kicked, so we may as well surrender. Well, surrender it was unthinkable to the Japanese mindset at that time. So presented with a situation where we've got you by the cojones, there are only two choices being surrender or attack Pearl Harbor. They would take their chances and attack Pearl Harbor. Well, logically, that made sense from the Japanese perspective.
And but the proof in what you're saying, people have to realize this. We dropped that bomb in Hiroshima, and we assumed they would surrender. And they said, "What else you got?"
Here comes number two. Here comes Nagasaki.
And then, of course, we talked about this before about the fact that we only had two. So,
well, gee, I hope they surrender because we run out of bombs. It's going to take us another few months to build that third one to hit Tokyo.
No, but seriously, we hundreds of thousands of people died in 90 seconds, and they still weren't going to. They could not. You're right. They could not wrap their mind around or surrender. It was just ethically alien to them. They couldn't do it.
It was the Japanese emperor recognized that faced with the destruction of two Japanese cities, and he had no way of knowing how many more we had.
Right.
He said to the Japanese people, "We must surrender, otherwise our civilization will be destroyed." So yes, you could. There are many things that happen in reality that Hollywood would never accept as a script for a movie.
Yeah.
But reality always, has a way of surprising everyone. So right now, just like, if conventional wisdom were anywhere close to being reliable, accurate, or consistent, Hillary Clinton would have been elected president in 2016, because everyone was saying, on election night, they were saying Hillary Clinton has a 99% chance of victory in defeating Donald Trump. 99% chance until he was elected.
Yeah, right. Until she wasn't.
Until she wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You have to have a sense of humor about these things.
Oh yeah,
because otherwise you could drive yourself crazy.
So Jonathan, I spent this morning trying to find out how many people have died in the Ukrainian war in the last month. There's not a lot of good statistics on this. I'm sure you know that. The best estimates. This is the estimates I've come up with. Is that the Russian deaths are between 3,000 and 10,000. And Ukrainian deaths between 1,500 and 5,000. These are estimates, and they're all over the board, and no one really knows, and there's no good statistics. I mean, do you know anything better?
Now, what I could do is I could check with my guys, Sasha and Ivan, and say, hey guys, can you, because they're very good at their sources at estimating the degree of casualties on the Russian side, and the Ukrainian leadership, for its own part, wants to keep close hold what its actual casualties are. But they have been I would add that they have been successfully utilizing their drones, and what the drones are effectively doing is they are forming a robotic shield in front of the Ukrainians. Mm-hmm. They are forcing the Russian human soldiers to fight Ukrainian robot soldiers and drones, and it's just it's a beauty. It's a beauty to watch from a military technology.
You're talking about implausible situations. When this started, everybody thought the Russians would win this in like 2 weeks, and here we are 4 years in, and Ukrainians kicking their butts. It's really amazing. This little country.
Yeah.
But it's also testament to what you said about the fact that the Russians are basically have nothing going on.
Yeah. So right now they are simply going through the motions, and they're like that boxer who's simply run out of steam, can't throw any more punches, can't defend himself, and the Ukrainians are pressing forward with the advantage. And I'm just waiting for that knockout blow. And
prediction? Do you have any predictions at all? How long this is going to take?
well, right now, the key that I watch is because I believe and have asserted since the beginning of that war that the true center of gravity, the decisive point, is control of Crimea.
Uh-huh.
And there is the Kerch Bridge, which links Russia to Crimea. And as the prelude to a successful recovery of Crimea, the Ukrainians must isolate Crimea by destroying the Russian ability to reinforce either with troops or with logistics. If they can do that and seal it off, and just at the same time, which they've been doing, destroying the air defenses over Crimea, that would enable the Ukrainians to gain air superiority or near air supremacy over Crimea, which is the necessary prerequisite for an invasion of Crimea. You cut it off, and once the Ukrainians invade, it forces the Russian occupiers to surrender because they don't have supplies and they don't have reinforcements. So you cut them off, and then that basically falls into Ukrainian hands. So that's the series of events that I am be most closely watching. That's the decisive knockout punch. And right now, the Ukrainians have been making progress in the eastern part of Ukraine, driving back the Russians steadily and nullifying any gains they have made. And this is something that will be key in the coming weeks, because once they have, apparently the Ukrainians are killing Russians at a greater rate than they can replace them with their mobilization. So that is rendering the Russians comparatively weaker as the weeks and months go on, and it prevents them from reacting effectively to a potential Ukrainian invasion of Crimea, because it will make that invasion of Crimea much more likely to be successful. So it's a fascinating series of developments.
It is.
And right now, yeah, and I just greatly admire what the Ukrainian military has done.
Too.
And it's an object lesson. And commentators have mentioned that this Russian-Ukrainian war is going to be studied by the United States military, and specifically by the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, for the rest of the 21st century. And I also predict, just on my own, that in the United States there are war game companies, commercial war game companies. I have a collection of war games myself.
If you're talking about like for the public to play, yes.
Exactly, for children, teenagers, and
right.
And I can confidently predict in not too many years that there will be commercial companies producing war games on the Iranian conflict, current Iranian conflict. That will become a game, and so too will become the game of the Russian-Ukrainian war. It will have what if options, potential optional rules, things like that. There's a company called Simulations Publications Incorporated, SPI.
That's a nice alliteration. Simulation Publications.
Yeah, it's amazing. Back in the 1970s, and I wonder if there are still any lucky subscribers who took advantage of remaining alive. Back in the 1970s, they offered a lifetime subscription for $75.
Yeah.
And that meant that every 2 months they would get another issue of Simulations Publications, and what they guarantee is that there is a game built into every issue.
Well, American Airlines, they offered a lifetime fly pass for $100,000 or 20, 30 years ago, and they finally canned it. And I don't understand legally how they could do that. I don't. They said so many people took advantage of this. It was $100,000. It was like 1980 or something like that, which was a lot of money then. But it's like people bought this, and they were flying all over the world, all over the place. And they finally
free drinks.
Finally said no. No, you can't do this anymore. I don't understand. If it's lifetime, it's lifetime, isn't it? I don't understand how that works.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if Simulations Publications, they were probably relying on the actuarial tables to eventually reduce the number of people who are taking advantage of this lifetime subscription.
And also, you mentioned other commentators, but I would like to point out there are no other commentators that have both your charm and knowledge.
Are you serious?
No, I'm serious. No, you think Dr. Jack Keane has your personality, man? No, he's knowledgeable,
Well,
but
I've watched Jack Keane. Now, Jack Keane has my dream job.
yeah, I know
He does.
I know.
He's
And you should
say
probably
that.
have it.
Well, I'm not going to be so presumptuous as to say that, but Jack Keane, I looked up his record. He's 82. He's been the former vice chief of the army. He's got props. He's got 4 stars. He's got props.
Right.
So I have no quarrel with that. And his title is he's the senior strategist at Fox News. Okay, he's 82. He's 82. I'm 70. Okay, I'm a colonel. Fine.
Yeah,
I have.
Wait till he dies.
Say what?
Wait till he dies.
Oh, jeez. I would ask you to say, General, could you please put in your last will and testament that I've been named your successor?
Right.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I gotta go.
Give a colonel a break.
This has been wonderful as always, and it's been very, very informative. I really appreciate it. And we'll have to have you on relatively soon again, maybe in the next month or so. Okay,
that'd be great.
I love that. And I'll run your theory by Murray Sabrin tomorrow.
Because I'm genuinely interested in, because there are certain aspects of my theory that I cannot prove without access to the people who can run the numbers. And that's my main doubt. Could we implement the solution in time?
If you have some time in the next 24 hours, you may want to elaborate on this on an email. And I'm going to see him about 24 hours from now. So, yeah.
Cool.
Good. Thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks to God. I can't run this place. Now, this is the second day in a row I've done this. The mic was not on. Actually, it was on, and I turned it off. You don't want to know. Let's just forget it. Now, normally, if we were on tape, we'd start over, but we're not. And that itself is a joke. So, our thanks to Jonathan Lockwood there. Very informative. Good guy. This is Footnotes for Tuesday, April 28th. And I'm going to allude to something about what we do. So, we all know about what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night. It's Tuesday now. It still bothers me that it's kind of dominating the news because nobody has anything new to add. Okay, yesterday, the guy got hauled into court. All right, that's fine. That's new, and then he's going to get hauled in, I guess, on Thursday again. Okay, that's new. But seriously, if you don't have anything new to talk about, why are you talking about it? And then you might look at this show, but I think this is one of the reasons we have such a diverse range of subjects on this show, because, I'm kind of in my admiration for the people who run shows just on UFOs, and, it's a big topic of mine, but there's not that much news, even at once a week, there isn't that much news. I talk about it, occasionally, regularly here, but there isn't that much news. So, it's like, what are you going to talk about? So this is our footnotes section where I like to talk about the stuff in the news that you missed. Now, the reason I brought up the White House Correspondents' Dinner is because in our Can You Be More Hypocritical department, Luigi Mangione, the guy who allegedly killed the guy, the CEO of United Healthcare, on the streets of New York City by shooting him in the back. Didn't even have the gumption to shoot him facing him, allegedly, on tape, allegedly. He says he doesn't agree with political violence. I just find this is just hilarious. Really, he's made a statement. I'm going to read you his statement. Or actually, this is a statement that his attorney put out for him. Mr. Mangione does not support violent actions that do not condone past or future political violence. These repeated attempts to connect him to unrelated acts or to insinuate that he condones or supports these acts are irresponsible, dangerous, and prejudicial. Bullshit. Really? What the hell are you talking about? You killed a guy because you said he was a criminal because he ran an insurance company, and you killed him in cold blood on the street. And like I said, you didn't have the honor of shooting him and facing him. He never knew who killed him. He does not know you, and you don't condone political violence. Bite me. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's like, you've got to be fucking kidding. Jesus Christ. It's like, the problem is people think that we've gotten to a point in our society where people think they can say absolutely anything. Now, of course you can't say absolutely anything, but does that mean I'm going to listen to it? Or I'm going to, no, that's bullshit. You just talked bullshit there, buddy. It's like, you just killed a guy and you don't condone political violence. Oh yeah, good for you. I'm glad you put a statement out. That's fantastic. Enjoy your rest of your life in prison. That's what I think. All right. So also happening today, this is actually kind of cool because this is the first time ever. For the first time ever, there's now a full-fledged, full-service casino within the boundaries of New York City. It's the Resort Casino. It's actually been running as a slots-only facility next to the Aqueduct racetrack in Queens. It's been running for several years, but now as of today, they have full service, full tables, blackjack, roulette. They have everything. So, and this is a quote. Here's a quote from one of the guys who was in line. He said, "Gambling is terrible. It destroys people. I'm here to get destroyed." I thought that was pretty good. But this is the first time ever. And you probably don't know this too. The Aqueduct racetrack in Queens is the only racetrack within the New York City city limits. And New York City has 5 boroughs and it's enormous. So that's also a little factoid I'm throwing out. I know that because I used to work in the race industry. So so they got full service gambling now within New York. You don't have to leave the city to do it. First time ever. And finally, I'm cutting this a little short tonight because we went a little long with Jonathan. A bunch of tech guys have started the first ever sperm racing World Cup. So the guy who has the fastest sperm is going to win $100,000. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm just a little pervert. I'm just a little 12-year-old boy that's just find this fascinating. But seriously, why are you doing this? What is the point of this? Well, I don't know. Someone's going to get some attention. I'm giving it attention. I'm sure you'll hear about it. This was just announced. And I was talking about the other guy. The guy's name who won was yesterday. I mentioned about the fact that won ran the Boston Marathon in under 2 hours for the first time ever. His name is Sebastian Saw. But I don't know if he's going to enter this. So this is how it works. They're taking 10,000 samples from guys, and the final will see 128 competitors face off. Really? Yeah. So, and they are hoping to get ejaculators from across the globe. I'm just so easily amused. It's like, why do you watch this? It's like, oh my God, I don't know. I got one more story too, which I wasn't going to include today because I thought it would go with tomorrow. Murray Sabrin's here, famed economist. And I'll talk about that later because I'm just joking around right now. On Thursday we got a pretty serious subject. The mattress actress Annie Knight of Australia, excuse me. She's released her earnings for the last few years. She's 28 years old. She made the news because she had sex with 583 men in 12 hours. And then had to be admitted to the hospital for vaginal bleeding. No shit. Really? You had sex with 538 guys and you had vaginal bleeding. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thought that was going to happen? Anyway, she's been making like OnlyFans, all this sort of stuff. She's been making consistently $200,000 to $400,000 a month for the last 3 years. You heard me right. $200,000 a month. So about $300,000 a month she's been making for the last 3 years, doing dirty shit online. There you go. And what am I making? Let's say it's not close to that. But nobody wants to see this. That's the problem. There's nothing to look at here. Maybe 40 years ago, but not now. No. No, there's a theory going around that the president wears adult diapers. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I've seen stories about it. There's a guy who said he worked on The Apprentice, and on The Apprentice, he knew that Mr. Trump did that. But here's the deal with that. Mr. Trump is 80 years old. I mean, I don't. He's still walking around and talking and making sense, unlike Joe Biden. So if you have to do that at 80, I don't know. That's not a bad thing, I guess. That's what I think. Well, I pulled that into the gutter really quick, didn't I? All right. Okay, so tomorrow, Wednesday, the 29th, Murray Sabrin's here, famed economist. He's got a new podcast, which is actually the reason I invited him on. He got a new podcast he's doing once a week, where he'll talk about economic matters that you don't know about because nobody in America knows it. Tracy Burns was on, former Fox Business Network anchor, was on last week, and she totally agreed with me. I said, the problem is nobody in America knows anything about money. And sorry, you don't. It's amazing. Nobody understands how the economy works. Nobody understands anything. It's just amazing. And then, of course, you got a whole bunch of quote unquote experts who think they understand and are always wrong. So, and of course, I'm not putting Murray into that category because he's my friend. and then on Thursday, Mike Arnold's here, and this is the reason I didn't want to bring this up in the middle of the goofy stuff, because we're going to talk about Christian genocide in Nigeria, which is really freaking bad, and that whole situation is really. I learned something studying for this interview. I did not know this. Nigeria is the 6th largest country on earth. They have well over 200 million people there. They have about the same number of people there that we had in the United States 50 years ago. It's kind of mind-boggling. So yeah, we're going to talk to him on Thursday. That's the lineup here. I want to thank you guys for watching today. I want to thank Jonathan Lockwood again. Great discussion we had on both the Iranian and the Ukraine wars. And we'll see you back here tomorrow with Dr. Murray Sabrin. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Take care.